Welcome to the Experience Gap, the Insight Shop to the rescue, where we turn customer nightmares into teachable moments for businesses. Each week, we bring you real stories of service breakdowns, highlight the moments that matter, and equip businesses with strategies to delight their customers. I'm Kate Complin, the owner of the Insight Shop. I created this podcast to give customers a voice, to share their stories and frustrations, in hopes that companies would take notice, listen, and take action, as customers are your most important assets. Today I'm joined by Alex Lipnik, the founder and principal marketing consultant of Data Elevate LLC. He is passionate about helping small businesses get more customers through targeted marketing. His specialty is financial services and health and wellness industries. Alex, it's great to have you on my podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for the very nice and warm intro, Kate. Excited to be here.
So Alex, before you share your poor experience at the Acura dealership, can you share with me and the audience some attributes for you that make an experience great?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, as you walk into any kind of shop or place of business, it's being greeted in a cordial manner, not fake nice, but actually genuinely warm. People listen to the issue or the problem that you have if that's what you're in for, and then not try to pass you off to somebody else, and just really sticking with you and helping you fix that particular issue or problem that you're there to solve. If it's it could be a doctor, it could be a car repair shop or anything like that. I think that those three attributes are what makes the experience really great for the business and the customer.
Great, wonderful. So now, Alex, on the flip side, tell the audience about your recent experience at your local Acura car dealership,
Yeah.
and let them know what fell short, what happened, and how it impacted you personally.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I have owned Acura cars for the last 20 years since we got married. We've owned Acura MDXs. We bought our son we used Acura RDX. We influenced my in-laws to buy an Acura MDX, the old version. Now they got a new version. And so we've had multiple Acuras in the family, in our extended family, and we've had great experiences with them. But our most recent Acura MDX fell short, and it was only about 5-ish years old when the transmission failed, and I took it into a local Minneapolis-based Acura dealer and just said, hey, it's making some noises, what can you take a look? I thought it was going to be just something minor, and they came back and said, it's going to take us more time and more money to actually take it apart, figure out what's wrong with it, fix it, put it back together, than to completely replace the whole transmission. And of course, my eyes and my heart just sank, and I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? They said, a new transmission's about $7,000 to $8,000. We can get you a refurbished one. There's no warranty on the refurbished one, so we really are. It's really in your best interest to get a brand new one for just a few more thousand. So, of course, my car was technically out of warranty based on miles, but as anybody that has ever had a Honda or an Acura knows, the quality is just top notch as far as driving it to high miles. 2, 3, 400,000 is nothing for Acuras and Hondas, and this car had, I think at the time it had 80 some thousand, and I think the warranty expired at 70,000, so it was a little bit over, but still, the major component of the car, like a transmission, should not just completely fail on a car that has less than 100,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, that was bad. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to reach out to the corporate office, and I got a little bit of a runaround because there are multiple locations. There's one in Chicago, there's one in California, there's one somewhere, I think maybe in Texas, and they all kind of gave me the runaround. And finally, I was able to get somebody in their main California office and was able to explain the issue, and they said, well, there's really nothing we can do. And at the time, I was also working with the manager of the shop, and the person I had originally started working with switched over, and now I got a new manager, and this person was way more helpful. And so as I was getting the runaround and as I was not really getting anywhere with the corporate office, even though I explained my situation and I said, look at all the cars, look up all these people's names. They're all either former or current Acura owners. Um, it wasn't really getting through, and that was a really bad experience in my mind because there's a lot of money spent and a lot of time spent with this brand and a lot of brand loyalty that wasn't being taken into account. But then the new shop manager kind of turned things around and said, I'm going to take care of this. You don't have to deal with the corporate anymore. I know exactly what the issue is. I know how to explain it so that it gets fixed properly. And so he was able to work with them, able to negotiate, which we thought was a fair settlement. Was about half that we would be responsible for, and then the half would be covered by the Acura corporate. And during the time that it was being in the shop and worked on, we got to drive a brand new car, no questions asked, no mileage questions or anything. We just got, we were just asked to fill it up as you would your own car. Our insurance covered it because it was basically a rental, our loaner, and so no worries. We drove it, which was great, which was a great experience. And so that turned a potentially extremely painful and sour experience around. I would say we still had to pay some money, but ultimately, the car was out of warranty, even though it wasn't by much. But yeah, so that was my experience. I'm really glad that the company was able to turn it around for us, and we don't have to just bash Acura for the rest of our lives now.
What would you say, Alex, in that story? What are some moments that mattered that had to go right in order for you to feel like you want to continue driving Acura cars in the future?
Yeah, I think really that local shop manager, the new one, really turned things around because he was being very empathetic. And even though, it wasn't really anybody's fault, he was still said, okay, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure that the brand takes care of you and the corporate takes care of you in the right way. And that I think, was a pivotal moment in our experience. Because like I said, if it was the other way around where they would just be saying, no, we're not going to bend over backwards for you, just one customer out of millions, that would have really not been great.
Yeah. And what would you say? I mean, a couple of things, you had mentioned is that the corporate office is like, well, there's nothing we can do. You're passed around. Obviously you're hugely disappointed because this car that was relatively new had a major expense and nobody really seemed to care.
All right.
What would you say in your experience are some of the pain points that were most painful or got to you the most within this experience?
I would say the most one was the disregard for the brand loyalty that we've exhibited over the last 20 years, and just the referrals and the recommendations that really it's not like we got paid to refer the brand. We just had good experiences with it previously, and so we just said, hey, this is a good brand. You should really take a good look at it versus some of the other brands. And when I would mention that to some of the corporate reps, they said, okay, well, you're not the only one that's in this situation, and really they have these really strict guidelines where if it's just a little bit out of warranty, that's it. There's nothing they could do because technically they're right. However, there's years and years of experience and loyalty that they're just disregarding when they say something like that.
Yeah. Looking ahead, how should have the experience at the Acura dealership gone for you? What should have it looked like for you to say, this was a great experience?
Yeah. I would say if the initial runaround or just passing me to either other associates or referring me to the office, if that didn't happen initially, I think it would have just started out much more strongly. So what I mean by that is if the initial manager had said, hey, completely get it, I'm going to take care of it for you, I'm going to reach out to them, this is really, an anomaly, it shouldn't be happening on a vehicle that's 5 years old. And so if that had initially happened right off the bat, it would have been a smoother ride versus what ended up happening is it dipped, the experience dipped, and then somebody was able to kind of pull it back up.
Hmm. And I'm just curious because, your car was only 5 years old and needed a brand new transmission. With the things that occurred kind of around the experience that were positive, were they positive enough to make you want to buy another Acura in the future?
There's still some hesitation there, just because not necessarily with how I would be treated, but more on the quality. It seems like the quality is just not there, or not to the levels that it used to be. So now, if it was at the very top, now it dropped down a couple of notches, and maybe on par with some of the other less reliable cars, where I'm thinking, well, for the same money, I could be driving something more fun or more sporty, even though it's going to be, breaking down. But this Acura could also be breaking down. So just kind of leveled the playing field with some of the other lesser reliable brands for me.
Yeah. And I like what you said too earlier about, if the store manager would have taken action on your behalf. There's too many times where a brand or a business causes issues for us, and then we're expected to jump through hoops to try to figure it out and take care of it. And so I really like what you're leaving the audience with is, hey, if something goes wrong, take it over for your customer.
Yeah.
Help them figure it out. Help them get to a solution. Don't put it back on them.
Exactly. Yeah, and I would say in this case, it would have been really easy for them to take it over right away, because they do deal with corporate on a daily basis. They do have contacts. They do have their own connections there, and they do have their own ways of getting around, the 20-minute on hold times, and so that would have been really nice if somebody just said, I'm going to take the initiative. It's not going to take me a lot of time. It's going to be a great value add for you, so I'm just going to do that for you. And
Yeah.
I think brands can really learn from something like that.
For sure. Well, Alex, thank you for sharing your story with the audience. I'll leave you with this. So according to PwC, a significant portion of consumers, 54%, would choose a dealership offering their preferred experience, even if they had higher prices. Additionally, 43% would pay more for greater convenience, and 42% for a friendly and welcoming experience.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it really lines up nicely with your story.
Yeah, it does.
And Posh Group Media says a significant number of consumers, 55%, are dissatisfied with how dealerships handle complaints.
Yeah, I've definitely seen my share of that and experienced that just with other brands, and they're just I don't know what it is. It's just one of these industries that doesn't really value a great customer experience unless you are in a very high luxury market, and that's unfortunate.
Well, and interestingly enough, only 1 to 5% of customers will complain. And so when you had mentioned that, the corporate office was saying like, well, you can't believe what you read on the internet, it's because they don't know. Because a lot of their customers haven't complained.
Yeah.
What their customers are doing is quietly leaving.
Right.
So brands need to make it easy and accessible for customers to share their concerns, and then do everything they can to make it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're alluding to our off-camera conversation that I mentioned when I did some Reddit research on this particular vehicle, and I got a ton of complaints. And when I brought that to the brand, to Acura, they said, this isn't really the case. We're not seeing that. We're not hearing that. And I said, well, who are all these people? They wouldn't be making this up.
Right.
There would be no reason to do that. And
No.
so just trust your customer, believe your customer, and then actually actively seek out feedback. Make sure that you're surveying the right people. You're getting the responses that are true and not just what you want to hear.
Yeah. And on the same note by the Posh Media Group, 80% believe customer satisfaction is important if a dealership has a clear complaint resolution process.
Yeah. Of course. Makes sense. Makes total logical sense.
Yeah. And in your case, that did not happen.
No, it did not.
So thank you, Alex, for sharing your story about your experience at your local Acura dealerships. And thanks to our listeners for tuning into the Experience Gap, Insight Shop to the rescue, helping businesses turn frustration into delight, one experience at a time.